My guest at this time stars in the upcoming film, The Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre. He is Randy Couture, and we may in a few moments also be joined by Boz Rutan. Randy, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me here today.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having us on.
So this thing looks crazy, Randy. I saw your name. I saw zombies. I saw pro wrestling. And they were like, do you want to talk to Randy? I was like, hell yes, I'm going to talk to Randy Couture about this craziness that's going on. So, Randy, for the fans out there that don't know, can you tell us about this film? What is this movie about, Randy?
Well, it's an interesting cross of the pro wrestling world. We have our two main characters played by Chris Margettis and Mike Carey, who actually developed this script. We're actual pro wrestlers at a pretty high level. Now they're kind of on the downhill slide. They're characters of the Manson Brothers. They've kind of dropped to the B League. They're in Santa Fe. Still trying to make a living at their craft, but definitely not in the big shows anymore. One of the other pro wrestlers on this circuit, who's played by Boz Rutan, is playing around with Chinese growth hormone. And this Chinese growth hormone is tainted and it causes him to basically start devouring people. And everyone bitten turns and you know the story from there. So the Manson brothers kind of have to go into action and save the day, rescue a bunch of people and kill a bunch of zombies that have been infected by this Chinese growth hormone. So maybe a little parallel to some of the reality that's going on in our world right now. Maybe not.
Well, but that's
definitely fun.
Well, that's what the great, zombie movies have always been. Zombie movies have historically always kind of weirdly been like a reflection of society. Like you go back to the Night of the Living Dead and everything. I'm a huge zombie nerd. So I'm just kind of maybe talking on my ass a little bit here, but like that's pretty common for zombie movies. Weirdly, always kind of have some kind of parallel with what's going on in reality.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what makes them uniquely special, and this one's a lot of fun. We had a blast filming it. Max Martini did a great job directing. I think it was only his second time directing a film.
Yeah, a lot of people would know him from like Pacific Rim. He's like an actor. He's like got over 100 film credits or whatever. This is only like his, like you said, like second movie. How was it working with him?
He was great. Yeah, he had a great vision. Knew exactly what he wanted, and I like that in a director, a guy that doesn't seem to be wishy-washy. He knows exactly what he's trying to get, and he's going to keep shooting until he gets what he wants. So I think those are pretty important characteristics for a good director, and Max seems to have that eye for sure.
Yeah, and Randy, obviously historic, MMA career. But, a lot of fans know you from like the Expendables as well now, branching more out into Hollywood. How was like working on this movie as compared to some of the other big budget films that you've been a part of?
We had a blast. I think at the end of the day, it's about the chemistry of the guys you're on set with, and with DB Cooper and, Freddie Joe Farnsworth as a stunt coordinator, Chris and Mike, Max, Boss, Mr. Wonderful. I mean, we had a bunch of amazing guys on this set. Definitely made some new friends. I mean, I hadn't met Chris or Mike before we shot this film, but we've stayed in pretty close contact since we shot this a couple of years ago in Santa Fe. So great place to shoot as well. Santa Fe was a lot of fun also, but obviously we had a blast. There was a strong connection, I think, with everybody. Small budget films are the only ones really taking risks nowadays, in my opinion. Most of the big studio projects are scared to put a bunch of money into a risk. So they're going to do a reboot. They're going to do something that they know in the past was tried and true. So why not revamp it and try it again? So I think in that regard, this film was fun, pushed some boundaries, did some really cool stuff. And at the end of the day, just a great group of guys to be around. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it was just a blast.
Sure. And so tell everybody a little bit about your role in the movie. You kind of gave us an overview. Who exactly are you in this? What are you doing here, Randy?
I played the old catch wrestler, the old Thump Hansen is his name. He's been there. He's done that. Been at the highest level. Still out mentoring some other pro wrestlers, mainly Chris and Mike, who play our two main characters, the Manson Brothers. So he's kind of the cynical one in the group, and he's got a little bit of an attitude. He was a fun character for sure.
It sounds like a fun character to play. I'm sure you really embrace that one, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so wait, so you're playing a veteran pro wrestler here, right? Now, for all of your accolades, pro wrestler, really not one of them. Now, Boz has some background in pro wrestling. Who were you talking to him about? Like, who were you talking to trying to get into, I guess, the character of playing a pro wrestler here for the movie?
Well, I mean, realistically, pro wrestling and pro MMA aren't that far apart. Obviously, pro wrestling is choreographed, and so you know the outcomes going into the match, which is not the case in MMA, at least for the most part.
Hopefully,
I think they're a little more in tune with doing some work fights and stuff. I've seen some of that where I thought that, oh wow, this fight's a work, which is obviously a term from pro wrestling,
right?
And I know that's where Boss had a lot of his experience. Pro wrestling was in the Japanese market. It's a little bit different over there,
right.
Hugely popular, and crosses that line between MMA and pro wrestling, the make-believe entertainment type of fighting versus the real fighting.
Sure.
You look at some of those organizations like Shuto and some of those where they had rope, they fought in rings, they used rope escapes and some of the things we're used to from pro wrestling, but it was still real MMA. So certainly in the Japanese market, there's a little crossover, but yeah.
Absolutely. Pancrase, I believe Pancrase style.
Pancrase, absolutely.
Yeah.
Boss was the Pancrase champion, king of Pancrase. And I went to one of those shows, my very first title fight in Japan. And it was fun. I mean, the crowd was amazing and they got after it. It was fun to watch. Yeah,
for sure. So was there like a specific veteran grizzled wrestler that you had in mind when you were channeling your role for the movie, or was this somebody that you kind of came up with independent?
I was really just channeling my own grizzled spirit from 14 years in mixed martial arts, really.
Okay.
I didn't have to go very far.
Okay, got it. So Randy, what is your pro wrestling fandom level? Like, are you a fan? Is this a novelty to you? Like,
back in the day when I was a kid, Jimmy Snuka, guys like that, Superfly, I watched as a kid, but I quickly realized that it wasn't real. And I started getting into real wrestling, collegiate wrestling and Olympic wrestling. And my interest in the pro wrestling scene kind of went away.
Got it.
I mean, that's just how the progression went for me. And once I was heavily immersed in collegiate wrestling, scholastic wrestling and Olympic wrestling, I really kind of lost the luster for the pro wrestling thing. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't my deal.
I feel you. I was just talking. It's funny. Like, I was just talking to Nick Newell from Bellator the other day, and similarly, he was like, I watched pro wrestling, but then like that launched me to wanting to do like real wrestling, and then I kind of fell out of pro wrestling. Right? Like, it's the gateway there, that pro wrestling, to get you into the collegiate world, I guess, sometimes for people. So
yeah. A few guys have gone the other way. Look at Kurt Angle, look at the Steiner brothers. They had all real, genuine amateur wrestling careers and then jumped into pro wrestling as a way to make a living. For a lot of us amateur wrestlers, there were no professional outlets to be a professional athlete or to continue to make a living using the skills that we'd spent most of our lives developing. So pro wrestling was certainly an option for some of those guys. Brock Lesnar obviously came from NCAA championship in Minnesota and then went into pro wrestling and then dabbled in mixed martial arts as well. So there is definitely some crossover. I think if you look at the model that Dana White and the UFC is using, it's absolutely the Vince McMahon pro wrestling model.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would probably say that. That's probably why Brock Lesnar does so well in both of them, right? He just came back again recently. I don't know if you saw Brock at SummerSlam there. He's got this new like
New
braided.
hairdo, the man bun or something. Yeah, I saw some pictures for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, yeah, obviously Brock's in WWE again. A lot of people wonder with you, Randy. I mean, have you ever trained? Do you have any interest in getting into the squared circle or anything like that?
No, I've never done any of the training. It's never been something that I was terribly interested in. Obviously, we saw Ronda Rousey, make that transition from MMA when things weren't going so well there for her in MMA, and she jumped over into WWE. They've never approached me about being involved, and honestly, I don't think it's something I would have been that interested in.
Okay, fair enough. Just wondering, Cain Velasquez made the leap not too long ago. Him and Brock got to.
Did he?
Oh yeah,
I
dude.
missed that. Yeah, I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, man. You should don't check out his WWE work. His match in WWE was not so great, but he actually went down to Mexico and works with AAA. Where's the luchador? Where's the luchador mask hitting her and Conranas? Dude, it's crazy. Wow. I actually really like Cain Velasquez as a wrestler. So saying that.
That's cool.
Yeah,
we saw obviously Ken Shamrock was in there for a little while.
Yeah.
I also think they had Tank Abbott in there for a bit in some of the early days a while back. Don Fry did it in the Japan circuit for a long time.
Oh yeah,
and had a really cool shtick and coming in there with his leather chaps and his cowboy hat and all that stuff. The Japanese love that.
Yeah, for sure. Most recently, again, I doubt you saw SummerSlam, but Gable Steveson just won the gold medal over in the Olympics. He's really chummy with Vince in WWE right now. Like maybe could be the second coming of a Kurt Angle over in Vince McMahon's world. I don't know if you have any thoughts on Gable or his big win at the Olympics or anything like that.
Well, he did an amazing job and showed that true American spirit. You never stop wrestling till the buzzer sounds. In that gold medal match, he did an amazing job there, and it was almost untouchable until that match. So very happy for him. Obviously, he's got a lot of offers on the table right now. I know the NFL is talking to him. I know the WWE is talking to him. Obviously, MMA and some of the MMA promotions have reached out to him as well. So he's got a very, very, very bright future. I also read the other day that he said he's coming back to finish his senior year at Minnesota. So I think that's a smart move by him. Get your degree done. Go out there and win another NCAA championship, and he can literally write his own ticket wherever he wants to go. I think he's going to be great. He has that wrestler's mindset that if you apply that to anything, you're going to be successful.
How do you think he would fare in an octagon? I mean, he's got obviously grappling skills are there, but it takes more than just grappling to go in there and get punched in the face in UFC.
Well, he has wrestling skills. Grappling. There's two sides to the grappling coin. A lot of these jiu-jitsu guys are very comfortable on their butt or on their back and very adept at finding ways to get you out of position and submit you from there. And I think that's something he would have to get used to, is putting himself on his back and learning to operate from there. But he's amazingly athletic. Obviously, the backflip. I mean, how many guys that size can just bang that out like
after winning after the exhaustion of winning an Olympic gold medal?
Yeah.
Dude.
So he's ridiculously athletic. If you give him enough time, he's a diligent guy. He'll figure it out. I think the striking will come second nature to him. I think he picked that up, learn by the numbers like every other wrestler I know, and be adept enough to be able to get his hands on guys and make them wrestle him. And then they're going to have a real problem.
Wow. Okay. Last kind of pro wrestling MMA here question before we go back to the film. I promise we will talk more about this movie. I'm very interested in it. But obviously there's another former UFC guy who dabbles in pro wrestling. CM Punk just came back and has the whole world on fire right now. I'm sure even you have seen that CM Punk is back. Do you feel the guy got a raw deal from MMA fans with the back-to-back losses in UFC? I don't know what you think of.
I don't know about MMA fans, but the fans can be brutal. That's just the fact. You're only as good as your last fight. And that's how you distinguish your real friends and true people that are in your circle basis just fans. Fans want to see winners and they're very critical. That's more of an American thing, honestly, than anything else. They're not so much that way in Japan and some of the other marketplaces. But he jumped right in at the highest level. He kind of tried to pull a James Toney and jump in at the highest level. And you got to give James Toney his credit for his boxing credentials, but some of that this does not translate to MMA. And I think CM did a good job of trying to train, trying to learn as much as he could, but he jumped into fights that were frankly a little over his head. I think if he'd have given himself more time to technically train and get some foundation, a solid foundation for fighting under his belt before he jumped into some of those bigger fights, he may have had a little more success.
Yeah, for sure. Mickey Gall is no slouch. You know, I was lucky to get to do an interview with him just before that Punk fight, and I remember just hearing it in his voice, like, this guy's gonna murder CM Punk. Like, he really got excited about the chance to like rip the head off of a famous person in that octagon. I think he really enjoyed that. So anyway, so this movie here, the Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre, is not a one-time deal. There is already a sequel in the works. It looks like the Manson Brothers Satanic Vampire Deathmatch. Quite a title.
I think Mike Carey just likes creating these tongue twisters for all of us to try and say. I mean, that is a mouthful for anybody. But I'm excited that he's developing the sequel. He's in the process of writing that script now, and he's got such an amazing sense of humor. He comes from a very unique mindset and place with the way he writes. Even, I mean, if you've been around him at all, the jokes he tells, just who he is he's a very unique guy, and I really like him. He's fun to be around, and I think he's going to come up with another really, really good one.
So, are you planning to be a part of the sequel? Like, I guess, spoiler alert. I guess if you're not, maybe you die, or Osrutan eats your brain, or something like that. But do you have?
Well, I did die. I did die in this one, but I don't think that matters. I don't think it matters to Mike.
Okay.
I think he wants to bring back a lot of the same actors to play different characters in this movie. That's just the way Mike thinks, and I think I really like that. Certainly, I'd be happy to work with these guys anytime and anything. We just got to premiere the movie a couple weeks ago in Chicago at a horror festival there, which was a lot of fun.
Wow.
I mean, just sitting around that place, signing autographs and taking pictures with people was worth the trip. And then we got to obviously premiere the movie, and they really enjoyed it. Huge ovation for the film after it was done. So it definitely taps into that horror mindset and that horror crowd.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome, man. I mean, again, huge zombie fan, and yeah, I'm glad to hear it. Living or dead, it'd be fun to see some more of you kind of in this space here, you know. So anyway, Randy, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with the film. Talk a little bit about pro wrestling stuff, a little off the beaten path for you, not a traditional interview, I would guess, that you usually do. But thank you. Where can people go? It comes out September 10th, I believe. Where can people find the movie when it's out there?
I know it's going to be in some limited theatrical releases across the country, and then I know it's going to be on a digital platform, but I'm not sure which digital platform it'll show up on.
Okay, cool. Hey, Randy, I want to thank you so much. Anything else, by the way, while you're here that you want to let the fans know about, anything you want to promote or anything like that?
Well, we're getting ramped up for Expendables 4. Supposed to leave October 1st to start filming that movie in Europe. So excited to be back with the guys, and the new script is crazy. Every single one of these, man, I read the script. I'm like, how in the hell are we going to do that? And they come up with a way to get it done and make it look right. And this one's no different. It's going to be very exciting. Tons of action, as you would expect.
Yeah.
So it's going to be great. I'm excited to see all the guys again.
What a cool concept, man. Let's just get all the biggest badasses of all time and just blow stuff up. And are there, I mean, I don't know if you can say or not, any big names joining the ensemble this time? Any action stars?
They keep that stuff pretty close to their vest. There's a lot of rumors floating around out there, but I cannot verify or I don't have any real info as to who. I've read the script. There are some new characters in there, but they don't tell you who they cast in those characters. So I know there's a couple of interesting female characters in this script. There's also a couple of new interesting male characters in this script that have integral parts in this movie. So who they cast is anybody's guess. I think it'll be somebody interesting for sure.